We're going to talk about the one single golden rule that could change the way you grow your business. And this isn't some fancy trick. It's not another buzzword you hear at marketing conferences or anything like that. This is about understanding human beings, plain and simple. There's a famous quote in marketing that says, people don't buy a drill, they buy a hole in the wall. It sounds pretty clever, right? But let me give you the real twist. They're not even buying the hole. Think about it. Have you ever woken up and said, man, I really want a 1/4-inch hole drilled right here? Well, no, of course not. Nobody wants or cares about the hole. What they're really after is what comes after the hole, right? It's the family photo they hang up that sparks memories every time they walk past it, reminding them of vacations or celebrations and the milestones that they've shared with their loved ones. It's the pride they feel when friends come over and admire their perfectly decorated living room, giving them a sense of validation and accomplishment. It's the feeling of finally turning the house into a home, creating a personal space that reflects their identity, their value, their values and their dreams and so forth. The drill, it's just a tool, a practical piece of equipment that's easily forgotten once the job is done. The hole, well, just a stepping stone, right? It's an invisible piece of the puzzle that nobody thinks about after it serves its purpose. But that sense of pride, that deep satisfaction, that moment when they realize their space truly represents them, that's the thing that people are buying. So think about it. People aren't driven by logic alone. They're driven by emotion, desire, aspiration. Whether it's the comfort of finally seeing a dream realized, the joy of hosting guests in a warm, inviting home, or simply the relief of completing a task that's been nagging at them for weeks, it's always about the emotional payoff. It's about that internal dialogue that says, I did it, I made this happen. So here's the key. If you're selling anything, whether it's drills, software, yoga pants, or cupcakes, stop obsessing over your product itself. Stop listing out features like you're reading a grocery list. Instead, start talking about how it makes people's lives better, more fulfilling, easier, more enjoyable. Show them vividly how your products help achieve those goals, solve their problems, enrich their daily experiences, and so forth. Focus on connecting the dots between what you offer and the meaningful outcomes that they genuinely care about.